Welcome.
Welcome.
I almost dropped my
People.
laptop.
People. Huh?
No, I said I almost
Oh,
knocked
let's
my
drop
laptop over. That would have been an eventful moment on podcast 13.
13. Yeah. It's the symbol of growth and also the occult symbol of awesomeness, I heard.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. And also Taylor Swift likes it.
Nice.
And I like Taylor Swift. No, just kidding. Anyways, yeah, so today we're going to talk about basically the relative difference between fascism, communism, socialism, capitalism, and our thoughts on each one of those, and kind of what that means for society, and the outcomes when you take communism or socialism and you take that to the extreme. So.
Alrighty. So I'll just pull this up so I'm not like,
well, it's actually a really broad topic that we're going to be embarking on because there's obviously socialism, communism, collectivism. These are all different words. Marxism, fascism, and they're really somewhat ill-defined, really, because they're so broad.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if you talk to someone that is a socialist or that believes in socialism, there's about 100 million definition or different variations of socialism. So when you're debating somebody that's a socialist, and let's say you're a capitalist, there's many shades of socialism, and I think that's why it can be so difficult to actually talk about this topic.
Yeah. Because I've thought about communism. I've heard these like fascism, all these things thrown around, and I'm like, okay, I know it's bad, but I couldn't recognize what it was. Like if you were to be like, what's communism? It's not capitalism. That was almost the depth of what I kind of knew at one point. And it's like why, like I kind of wondered at one point why is there so much fear and everything towards it? Well, it's something that has happened many times. The United States is I don't know, I'm drawing a blank. It's a rare, like, United States is the
It's the exception, not the rule,
yeah.
as far as how a country is run.
Yeah.
And actually, I would say now in the later stages of the United States, because 1776, right? That's the birth of the United States, official birth of the United States, and our birth, how we ran our country, is a lot different than right now. We've added in a lot of socialistic programs like Social Security. Social Security. That is a socialistic program. Most countries are not 100% capitalistic. We're definitely not a 100% capitalistic country. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. We wouldn't have any of those programs.
Which, honestly, if you think about it, do you have when you think about Medicaid, when you think about, Social Security has been one that I think, probably the best that I know of, that has worked decently, but Medicare, all that, do you have positive thoughts when you think about Medicare? No, not really. At least I don't.
Well, it's a really, just like the, I think it's so complicated. It's kind of like the IRS code. It's so complicated and so weighed down by bureaucracy that it's almost impossible to do anything simply.
No, yeah.
And that, I think, is the biggest downside of Medicaid and Medicare. It's supposed to be helping out the poor and the young that wouldn't have access to health care otherwise, or the old and infirmed. But really, it's something that I think used to be done. It used to be done not by a government program, but by the people that are around you that care about you. So if you were older and you fell on hard times, your family or the church or the community would rally around you and actually take care of you.
Yeah.
And now I think it's actually it can be negative because now it's those programs exist, so that's good in one aspect. But on the other hand, I think people go, oh well, I don't actually have to reach into my bank account and give this person money because really they have Medicare or they have Medicaid or they have Social Security.
Yeah, basically it's typically governments, like I think we said on the last podcast, it seems like almost every time the older government gets, the less efficient it gets, and the more waste. Like, if you had a business, like a well-oiled business that's a machine, and they looked at the government the way that they're spending money, it's like you wouldn't be in business. And obviously, that's the course where the government's going is because of that. So, do you want the government to have more control, implement more things? Because not really anything. I don't know of anything that has recently been implemented that actually has been beneficial. It's usually just it's a parasitic thing that it just gets more and more hungry, and it's insatiable.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Well, and the government doesn't balance their checkbook.
Yeah.
So like if you're an individual, you can't sit there and just keep spending forever.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you max out your credit cards. Eventually, your spending and your debt outweighs your income, and then eventually you go bankrupt.
Yeah. But anyways, that's part of the socialistic or communist. I like the analogy you had. That one guy was saying like, I'm communist. I'm a communist at home.
Yes. Well, we should actually. So I'm not gonna remember it all the way correctly. So we should look it up. Nassim Taleb, quote about, I guess, socialism.
I don't know. Nassim Taleb.
Yeah, just butcher it. I think it's Taleb is TATIALB or something, LAB or something like that. He's popular, so it should pull up. Just spell it how it sounds. You're right, Nicholas. Yeah, that guy.
Oh, I can't believe that word. Okay.
Yeah, Google's pretty good.
Dang. Okay.
But yeah, he was he does he has a couple books out actually that if you guys are interested, you should check out. He has let me see here. I think he has one that's called Black Swan. He has like 3 or 4 books out there that are really good. He was a options trader, and that's how he made his money. And he's actually anti-Bitcoin, believe it or not.
Interesting.
So, but yeah, here we go.
With my family, I'm a communist. With my close friends, I'm a socialist. At the state level of politics, I'm a Democrat. At higher levels, I'm a Republican, and at the federal levels, I'm a libertarian.
Yeah, and I really like that.
Quoted by Naval on Rogan. That happened to be okay. Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, but basically, it's what's happening is like there's people nationalists. They love their country, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how much do you love your neighbor with your family? So it's like that's a communist approach. It's like you should love everybody. Well, the thing is like you love the people that are closest to you. It's hard to you love your countrymen, but it's not like you love your family members.
Right.
So it doesn't function.
Well, it's the thing is okay. So what he said with my family, I'm a communist, and that makes sense because if you're the head of a family, like whether you're a woman or a man, but if you're the head of a household, right, or maybe you're a married couple and you have kids, right, you're not gonna sit there and say, okay, kids, like let's all have a conversation together about what the family should do. No, you're like, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do as kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to share my resources with you, but I'm going to dictate how the resources are allocated. I'm not going to ask you, the kid, how they should be allocated, right? Mm-hmm. And communism, as far as my understanding of communism, so there's a bunch of definitions, but my definition of communism is, as far as an economic definition, is the means of production is owned by the government, controlled by the government. Socialism, my definition of socialism, is that the means of production is controlled by the government but owned by the people still. And so that's kind of like how I differentiate things. Fascism is something that I haven't always been super clear on, because there is a lot of definitions of fascism, and people actually throw that word out as an insult, almost like racist. It's like, you're a fascist, you fascist pig. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, but what does that really mean? And to get a clearer understanding, I think fascism basically means, what the real definition of fascism means is basically the cooperation and solidification of the corporations and government, but not necessarily for the people or voted in for the people. It can be a crony fascism, where basically the corporation and government are unified, but it's not really for the people.
Yep.
And that is truly, to me, a very scary world. And I think most people would agree, even socialists or communists would agree, that's not cool. We don't want corporations and the governments to walk hand in hand, not for people, but for just profit.
Yeah.
And I think that's where fascism comes from. And I think, for the most part, people are going to have debates whether socialism works or communism works or capitalism works, but most people want the power to be in the hands of the people. Even socialists want the power to be in the hands of people. They just think that the best way to do that is for the collectivism of the people to form groups, and the groups then they come together, they control things, and then they vote on things, and they get power, and they control that way.
Yeah.
Whereas capitalism is more individualistic, and it's like Adam Smith, basically the founder of really economics. It goes back to Adam Smith, and his thing is like the invisible hand. It means basically like every person does what's in the best interest of that person, and it just so happens to help the group.
The group, yeah. Yeah, and I think that there are like, so I've always thought like you can just be like, okay, people are like, oh, this is good and this is bad. Well, like capitalism, it just happens to work in a sense. Like it works. It has worked pretty well. I mean, there's always flaws and things, but
well, I think
what matters is like the culture and everything, like the installation of culture.
Yeah.
And like there is something like unity. Like I think when the United States was the most united was World War II, like around World War II, that era.
They came together.
They came together. Yeah.
They unified them.
Yeah, but like the way I see it today, it doesn't feel like there's some unity. There's some things where I see people coming together on social media platforms and stuff like that. Yeah. But I don't see that like this pride. This
no, there's not a lot of patriotism anymore.
No, not that. There is here and there, but yeah. But basically, I listened to this podcast. I was trying to remember the lady's name and look it up, but she was on Tucker Carlson's podcast, and she grew up in the Cultural Revolution in China, which I'd heard about it, but you think Cultural Revolution sounds great and everything, right?
Right.
No, it wasn't great. And she brought up some key points, and she was fortunate and was able to get into the United States. She was like sponsored by someone.
Okay.
And basically she was saying like she came to the United States, and like everything was great and stuff, but she noticed that I think it was like 20 years ago, I want to say, when she first started seeing signs like that correlated exactly with the cultural revolution in China.
China too. What's going on right now?
Which is like, honestly, it's one of the most unnerving things, because there are just similarities that you just can't ignore, and just because they're not exactly the same, like they just morph, like certain things in the humans, like just because it'll take another shape in other areas, like there'll be different ways that it presents itself. It won't be exactly the same way, but
right, there's some key ingredients that are the same.
Yeah, like I mean, one of the things that is like exactly the same is where a lot like ideologies are coming from. They originated in China at the most prestigious schools. That's where their cultural revolution started.
Okay.
And yeah, they basically they they pretty much threw away any, they labeled people. There was black and red, because it's pretty much just one race in China, so they didn't have as much of the racial.
Right, the racial divide is primarily just Chinese.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not there's not people that are dividing based on those lines.
Yeah. Yeah, so, they had black and red, and one was good and one was bad. I can't remember which one, but it basically, you were put in this category, and it wasn't like once you were put there, and you couldn't get out of it. You were labeled this, and that was it.
Right. Similar maybe to how like you believe some of the things in the Republican Party, or you believe some of the things in the Democrat Party, and now all of a sudden people are labeling you as far right or far left. Kind of what we got going on in the United States.
Yeah, it's basically like there's someone that identifies as like a Democrat or liberal, and not like just because they hold a point of view, now they're a far right conservative.
Right.
And basically,
well, it's just like Joe Rogan. A lot of people are labeling Joe Rogan as far right.
Yeah.
Even though he espouses a lot of liberal ideas too.
And then calling people fascist, calling people racist. They're
Sexist,
doing that. Basically, language is starting to lose its, like, certain words and stuff are starting to lose its meaning, because it's just thrown around willy-nilly.
Right.
And it loses its value.
Right.
As even like someone even using it, because they're using it for something that's not even like, yeah, maybe something is like kind of bad, but it doesn't mean this person is this.
Right.
And then they're throwing labels on people.
Right. You believe in maybe the Second Amendment or something, the right to bear arms, and now you're considered a racist. Well, it's like, if you're labeling people that believe in the Second Amendment as racist, then you're kind of like devaluing the word racist, because it doesn't really mean that, but you're blanketing people with this term racist. Anybody that you don't like, you're labeling them as racist, and so it actually loses its value. It's actually similar to like supply and demand for currency. It's like you overinflate the supply of currency, and it loses the value of the currency. It's kind of a weird analogy, but if you think about it, if you inflate the amount of times that you call people racist, and for the things, the behaviors, you call many behaviors racist, it actually decreases the value of the word racist.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, if you have any moral standing as a person, and you're just like make sure like the words that you have, if you're just throwing around words that actually mean something, you're losing credibility for yourself.
Right.
And you're doing a disservice if you actually do care about certain things.
If you actually do care about racism.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're decreasing your value, because you're not actually you're actually lying.
Yeah.
You're lying. So it's actually compromising your integrity by calling somebody a racist that isn't a racist, and actually you're decreasing the value of the word racist, and you're actually kind of decreasing the value or the or the cause. You're kind of devaluing the cause against racism by just labeling everybody racist.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this, like, when the problem is when, like, these things, they, if you look at history and start looking into these situations where um, these ideologies, or not even ideologies, the ideologies emerge from the actions and what people are saying and the groups and everything. They kind of, human tendencies, when there's no, like, they kind of just happen this way, because that's typically what happens in history, is like it ends up going down a very tribal route.
Right.
Like,
right. Divisive.
Yeah, divisive. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the things one of the signs that you see, like, there's struggle sessions, and this was happening during the Cultural Revolution in China. I'll just read that.
Sure.
Sessions usually conducted at the workplace, classrooms, and auditoriums. Students were pitted against their teachers, friends, and spouses. Were pressured to betray one another, and children were manipulated into exposing their parents. Staging scripts and agitators were prearranged by the Maoists. Sorry, Maoists to incite crowd support. And but there's also different forms of struggle sessions. Yeah. This is, like, kind of just rough, but a real example of it would there's, like, the virtue signaling, like, there's the morality. I'm more moral than you. It's a status game, which status games are zero-sum games a lot of time, because I mean. And
explain that. What is a zero-sum game?
Yeah, zero-sum game is basically where you've got a group of people, and they're trying to just morally look better than everyone else around them, and don't actually bring any true value, like, to the group. They're just lifting themselves up to push other people down.
Right. And in, like, kind of like a company situation, if you're in a company, if you're in the workplace, right? A zero-sum game too would be, like, basically, like, there's only one vice president, or there's only one president of the company, or there's only one CEO, and in order to get the CEO position, you either have to prove to everybody around you that you have the highest status, meaning, and generally, a lot of that comes from value, but it could also just come from basically virtue signaling and acting.
Yeah.
And not actually bringing in real value. But zero sum is basically, like, in order to get the CEO position, you almost have to take someone out of that. Only one person can be the CEO. And so that's a zero sum game. It's not like there can be multiple CEOs. There can only be one, and that's a zero sum game.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons why capitalism is cool, because a company doesn't want to hire someone unless they're bringing value.
Right.
Like, if they bring value, and that, like,
you can go out and you can create another company that is your own, that then serves different customers or the same customers, just like you have like AT&T and T-Mobile, right? They're in the same market, they're in the same industry, they're competing against one another, but it's not a zero-sum game, because they can actually end up serving more customers.
Yeah.
Combined.
Yeah, and if one's better, they're like, oh, we better do better, and like, the worst thing is when you got one product that, like, there's you got a company or something that has a monopoly, and they have no competition. Then they can indicate the price, they control the price of it, and
they can just keep jacking it up forever. If it's something that's like a necessary good, like insulin or something, you could, if you're the only producer of insulin and there's nobody else producing insulin, you could just literally jack that up almost to infinity, because people need it. It's a life-saving medication. So
yeah, it like, and also it just, like, how motivated are you if you're not gonna be able to, like, up your like, by your own power and working hard, educating yourself? like how motivating it would be if you didn't have like you work hard,
right?
You get punished for getting like working hard.
Right.
You're working too hard. That's some situations that I've seen in or I've heard of in unions. It's like you're making us look bad. You need to stop working so hard.
Right.
Like literally, that's situations.
Right.
But anywho, I'll give getting back to like the struggle session. So one thing that I've seen is like I saw this video that was just like, what is going on here? There's like they seem like really well off, like ladies that were it's a struggle session what they were doing. Basically, they were all ganging up on this one woman, and they were saying something while they explaining this really complicated and elaborate way of saying this is how you're racist, and then in order for her to appease the group, and she's actually feeling good about she's like accepting their condemnation, like condemnation. I don't know why I can't speak.
Condemnation.
And then she's like, in order to be accepted in the group, she's like, you're right, and I understand this, and like now I'm gonna do better. And it seems like it's positive in a way, but it's not necessarily true.
Right.
And that's like
it's groupthink.
Yeah, it's groupthink. Yeah, it's just those are some of the things that it's like shaming people into conforming to the group when there's not necessarily like it kind of just doesn't really make sense.
Well, and that's really like if you think about it, that's part of it. If you want to, you can kind of parlay that into just our two-party system right now. We have Republicans and Democrats, and if you're not in one, you're in the other, and it's like, well, hang on, there's more than just two beliefs. Yeah. And what I mean by two beliefs is like the Democrats have a set of beliefs, right, and the Republicans have a set of beliefs, but but can't you be both?
Yeah, I mean,
can't you believe things on both sides, and then also can't you believe things that don't fit in either of those silos? Yeah, you can. And so I think that's the problem with the two-party system.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that I disagree with. I mean, a lot of things I disagree with on both sides. But I mean, but anywho.
Yeah.
Going back to the Cultural Revolution, basically, it started in the universities, and it doesn't start off violent, really. Mm-hmm. It's just like protests and stuff like that,
or pure pressuring people to stay within a certain group thing.
Yep, and then they pressure people. They use fear mongering, like threatening people's jobs, like certain things to get
livelihoods,
get people to conform, not do anything about it.
Yep.
And then like basically it started in the higher up, like the more prestigious universities, and then it trickled down into other schools. And that Mao let it happen. He actually supported them, and because it was a way for him to get, I believe it was a way for him to outmaneuver his rivals or use them as a tool to get rid of his rivals. And that's how he basically, in the end, that once they got powerful enough, they shut it down. Like they took all these people, and then he basically took the military, came in with tanks and everything, took back control of the cities, and sent them to like working camps and stuff like that. And this lady I was talking about was actually sent to one for a bit. And it was like about 40 million people died during that.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. Probably through starvation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's things that like you'll hear words that are like you'll hear phrases, and basically they're weaponized, or you'll see that like people saying them like it is virtue signaling, or like that you're a virtuous person and you're supporting this and you're a part of the group and you're accepted, you'll post these things on social media or whatever, and you get support for it, and it feels good. You think you're doing something good, but then it like what happens is like these movements that may have good intentions in them get hijacked and actually end up having the opposite effect of what they were intended.
Right. Well, it really makes me think about like how like okay, so and this is just from my perspective, but it seems like say you have a minority, right? Maybe a disadvantaged minority, maybe you would call it. Maybe someone that is let's say quadriplegics, right? That you would say that these people are disadvantaged because they don't have use of their limbs, right? And then you say, we need to be more accepting of these people, right? And you think that's a good thing. That's a good thing, right? I think we can all agree that we should be more accepting of other people. And so then that's a good thing. And then a core group of people rally around that. There's a movement. Let's be nicer to quadriplegics. Let's be more inclusive, right? And then it starts to, I think, tip over into the point where it's like now we're going to be inclusive, but now if you say something that is like negative towards somebody that's a paraplegic or quadriplegic, now we're actually going to punish you, and we're going to sit there and say, okay, we're going to punish you, and we're going to maybe we're going to get you fired, maybe we're going to come after your family. Maybe we're going to, and then it starts to get into, oh, well, now all quadriplegics are good. And now it's like, well, yeah, but, Joe, the quadriplegic, he is not a nice guy. But then you have someone that speaks out against Joe, and they're like, you're being nasty to quadriplegics, and we're going to get you. You need to subscribe to our group thing. And so I think ultimately, these things, whether it's a good thing to be nice to quadriplegics, but it's also the point where it's like a lot of times there's a lot of nuance to life, and the nuance is be nice to quadriplegic, but there are some quadriplegics that are not nice people. Should we be nice to all quadriplegics regardless, even if they're not nice people? No. But then it's as soon as you say no, then they say, you're against quadriplegics.
Morally, like even if someone, never mind.
No, but you know what I'm saying, right? And then it's kind of like believe women, believe all women. But it's like all women, even the women that are liars. So it's like there's always more nuanced, and as soon as you start trying to batter people into this one blanket, non-nuanced idea, you start to teeter into more force. And I think that's the problem. I think ultimately is like I think Naval actually said this. I love quoting Naval because I think he's truly one of the great minds of our time, where he basically says, if you want consensus, follow the group. If you want the truth, follow the individual. So basically, there's a lot of nuance to life, and so more than not, it's the individuals that bring forth the truth. And sometimes I think when we get into groups, and I think even Naval says this, is that we're willing to actually sacrifice nuance to the group, for the group. And then when you get into that, you start actually waging war on truth to some degree, because truth is nuanced. And if you have to reject the nuanced part of truth, then you get into a reality that doesn't allow truth. And I think that's the real problem. I think that's why it's like individuals, we have to allow everybody to be who they are, and like allow them to say what they believe. And if you're racist, I'm not really a big fan of like deplatforming or cutting down or like or like getting people fired just for their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, if you're a racist and you're in charge of like, you know, recruiting for the NFL, that's probably not a good thing, right? Because you can't have people in those positions, but
well, it basically, like, so society has rules, and if you want to be in a society, like,
well, groups have rules.
Yeah, a society, like in the United States, if you are judging someone based off their skin, and not on the base of their character,
right,
then you don't belong here. You don't belong in the area. I mean, you don't belong here if you're judging someone based off of the color of their skin.
Well, you at least don't belong in the group.
In group.
A group.
Yeah.
You might belong in another group, like the KKK.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm it's funny, but I'm being serious because it's like is like as soon as you start saying, hey, like, well, that's the problem with having a unipolar world where basically the country sets down a set of beliefs and now everybody in the country has to believe the same thing. That's the problem with basically that's why we have separation of church and state in the United States, because everybody should be able and be free to believe what they want to believe. As soon as you say to be in this group, aka to be in this country, you have to be a Catholic, or you have to be a Jew, or you have to be a Muslim, or you have to be... That doesn't work. No. It's more complex. People are more complex. They hold many beliefs, and they should be able to choose whatever group they want to be in. And it's like with the socialist thing. You know, right now, in America, even though I think we're still primarily capitalistic, you can go and choose to associate yourself with groups that then build a company, and you can choose to allocate the equity of the company equally among 100 people. They do that. It's a thing. And if you want that, you're free to do that in America. But in other countries that are socialist, you're not. You have to buy into that, and you can't go and say, hey, I just want to start one company. I don't want to give equity to anybody else. And so I think capitalism is natural.
Yeah, you have something to offer. It's trading.
Yeah,
you've got something to offer. It's based off of survival. And when you're so disconnected from like value, like we're a part of this earth, and we're human beings. We started from go back to the Middle Ages. People were farming, and like everyone served a part inside the system. And when everyone stops providing value to the system starts collapsing.
Dies.
Well,
yeah, the system dies. I mean, it's just like I had this thought the other day. I was just I might have actually told you this. I just thought it was interesting, but it's like if you overinflate it's funny how much I go back to currency, but if you overinflate the supply of currency, right? You lose energy out of the system of currency, and eventually, if you do that enough, the currency dies.
No.
If you're a person and you're in a room and you suck all the heat out of it, eventually the person dies because they lose all their energy. If you take a business and the workers are like kind of schleps and they like lazy and they don't add enough energy, eventually the system dies. If you're a person and you do too many or if you do something that drains your energy, like I think even Michael Saylor talked about this, where if George Washington, they bled him to death, and they literally took all the energy out of his system, and then he died. And so, like, essentially, I think connecting that to socialism or communism, which I think is primarily like the redistribution of wealth. Yeah. And this is what my real problem with it is the forced redistribution of wealth.
Yeah.
So you're saying these people made more, they added more value to the system. These people added less value to the system, but that's not fair. Yeah. Even though that naturally occurred. That naturally occurred. You had some people with a large amount of talents, say strength, right? Basically, but if you go back in time, what was more important, intellect or strength?
Back in time?
Yeah, if you go back into like the medieval times, it was like you still have to have intellect, but the thing is it was primarily a labor-based society.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were really, really strong, you were able to provide a lot of value, right? And say you're naturally, 6'4", 250 pounds, and you're able to carry more rocks than everybody, you're adding more value to the system.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you and then someone that's like 5'5", not very strong, he was able to carry less rocks. He added less value to the system, and eventually these disparities are natural. So the person that carries more rocks is getting paid more. The person that carries less rocks is getting paid less. And it makes sense because it's proportional to how much value they're adding to the system.
Mm-hmm.
And but what happens with, I think, communism and socialism is these people over here that are carrying less rocks, now whether that's their own fault or just nature that didn't bless them with more strength.
Everyone gets distributed. Everything gets distributed the same, even though one person is doing more work than the other person.
Yeah, exactly. So you have this, but it's forced. The only way you can do that is at the point of a sword or at the point of a gun.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it, and it's actually you're trying to unnaturally redistribute wealth. But even though talent is not naturally distributed,
mm-hmm.
intelligence is not naturally distributed, strength is not naturally distributed, and you're trying to unnaturally equal those.
Yeah.
And the problem is that eventually there's more energy taken out of the system than there is put into the system. And if you were someone that was carrying more rocks, you're now getting the same as someone that was carrying less rocks, and you don't have any motivation. You're not incentivized to then carry more rocks. You just say, well, I'll just carry as much rocks as this guy or this guy,
mm-hmm.
and I'll just do what they do, or actually I'll do less because I'm going to get the same no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And so the energy, the total pie, the total value in the system actually decreases and decreases and decreases. And I think that's why a lot of times I think socialist or communist societies, typically, if they're purely socialist, they don't have hardly any capitalistic tendencies. A lot of times it ends in starvation for a good majority of the population.
Yep. Yeah, it like I always cringe when people are like, I think it was, yeah, I saw this. We should add another 25% tax to the rich,
wealthy.
With wealthy. It's like, first of all, people basically, I could see myself, it like my younger self, being like, oh wow, yeah, that would make it better for everyone, right?
Right.
No, it wouldn't. It would. I don't think it would make one iota of a difference.
Yeah.
Like, it would. I think it would add one, like, if you taxed the billionaires. I think it was like $1 trillion over 10 years or something like that. Yeah. No, that's not gonna fix a problem. That's not even. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're de-incentivizing those people.
Yeah. You're and then they'll want to go somewhere else. So you're taking the really skilled people that have accumulated that wealth,
right.
are driven. They're not doing it because of the money anymore. They're doing it because they're just driven, that they don't know what else to do, and
it's fun maybe for them too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that billionaires are insanely hardworking people unless you inherit it all or something like that.
Right.
Typically.
Right.
And yeah, but.
Well, and that's another, I think, common misnomer that I think that at least in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, but the people that, if you're working at McDonald's, you're working hard. I believe that. If you're a truck driver, I believe you're working hard. I believe that if you own a business, you're working hard. I believe that if you own a business that makes $100,000 a year, you're working hard. I think if you own a business that is making $10 million a year, I think you're working hard, and on and on and on and on. I don't think there's at any point in time an owner of a business that is not working hard.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think so. I think you because as you think, well, yeah, but my resources are going up. Yeah, but you have to look at the risks. Your risks keep going up too. You have risks from lawsuits. You have risks from your employees. You have regulatory risk from the government. Mm. You have competitive risk from your competitors. And so you think about it, you think, well, I just need if I own a business, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's not the case, because it's like saying, oh, I'm gonna be an engineer, and once I graduate as an engineer, I won't have to work hard again.
Yeah.
It's like, you think? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Once you graduate as an engineer, you get a job and you're going to be working hard. In the next job, you're going to be working hard, and you're going to have to work hard for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're going to be outcompeted, and no one's going to want to hire you because you're not going to be a good engineer. You're not going to stay competitive in the marketplace.
No.
Because there's always someone out there that's maybe a little bit smarter, that's willing to work a little harder.
Yeah.
So you have to stay competitive.
I think, yeah.
And that's
anyway. So my mind's going towards like more financial things, but that it's trying to keep it on track. It's so like, yeah, pretty much just you don't want a system that's de-incentivizing people to not work harder, because otherwise, like, the people that work hard, the people that become rich because they developed a product that helps everybody, I think that's freaking awesome. They deserve that. Because it makes everyone, like, whoever like figures out a system for like a new energy source or whatever like that, incentivized.
Right.
And any way you can have my mind really wants to talk about this. Like, the system that we have in the United States, yeah, it's capitalistic, but it's very, very inefficient.
Mm-hmm.
And it's bought, like, the government. Actually, this is going along. The government keeps on just keep on
more regulations,
more and more regulations, like just
more and more laws,
crushing the air pipes on any, like, a lot of people are like wanting to start new businesses and stuff like that.
You need a license for that.
Yeah,
you need all this compliance paperwork.
Yeah, I mean, so there are certain things that are really important, but what I'm like,
you want to make it as simple as possible for people
make it as simple and pretty cheap to start a business, because the more businesses, the more innovation.
Yeah.
Like, and more competition.
Yeah.
And you want competition.
Yeah.
Like, this whole ideology, like, I had it in high school at a Christian school, which is wild. Like, don't be competitive. Don't, like, we're not going to play against other sports. What are you doing? What are you doing in the real world? That is not a good ideology right there.
Right.
And that was, I became a not competitive person in high school because I thought it was a bad thing
to be competitive.
Yeah,
because it's kind of mean.
Yeah. It's like, here's the thing, is competition doesn't have to be bad, because it's not. We're not at war where I'm trying to kill you. You know, you got two companies. It's like, just because we're competing,
right,
like, doesn't mean I can't have a relationship with that business owner, being like, heck yeah, let's competition.
Let's crush it.
Crush it. Well, I got this idea. Let's see what's going on.
Right.
You know?
Well, it's
not trying to destroy that other company.
Well, it's funny because a lot of times you'll have people, and I welcome differences of opinions, and I'm still growing, and this is my current thought process, and it may evolve. But my kind of ideology is that, like, okay, like, you'll have the same people that will say competition is bad, and that, like, everybody should get, like, whatever participation trophies. I know that's something that a lot of people harp on to the point of it becoming cliche, but the thing is like, those same people will play a video game, and what are they trying to do? Win.
Yeah.
There's an aspect of human nature that seeks to win, and we better all be glad that that's there.
Yeah.
Because that's what built society. If you go out in society and you think, oh, well, like, I can get clean water pretty much anywhere in the United States. It may not be perfect, but I can get it pretty much anywhere in the United States. If I want to, this is another thing. Like, I went to Iceland, right? You know, do you know in Iceland, majority of the bathrooms you have to actually pay to use the facilities?
Did not know that.
Yeah. So in America, You pretty much use the bathroom anyway.
I wonder if their bathrooms are nicer though.
Yeah.
But is it government? Is it government? You have to pay the like.
No, you have to pay. The basically businesses require you to pay for the facilities if you want to use their facilities.
I mean, in my mind, that's making me think of the facilities that I've seen in the United States, like driving around.
Like Burger King,
most of the bathrooms are
pretty trash.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, but anyways, we don't have. But yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is and that actually that's not necessarily a bad thing in of itself if we want to get really nuanced. But like the thing is like going back to what we were just talking about before, like I think this whole ideology of competitiveness is not bad, and actually we better be glad that it's in the human spirit, because the only reason why, keeping up with the Joneses, that's like a cliche, like, quote or whatever, like, oh, you're keeping it always has a negative connotation.
Well, there is a negative connotation to that, like a caveat. It's never just this is purely good.
No,
like,
no.
Yeah, there's always nuances. But
there is. But keeping up with the Joneses. But the only reason why like people say that it's a negative thing is because people don't spend any time in other areas of their lives. But if you look at that, keeping up with the Joneses, it does have a negative connotation, but it actually is positive in a lot of ways, because it's kind of the reason why a lot of people
might not be positive for the person playing that game. But it is positive.
It's actually positive for society.
In a sense, it's positive for society.
Oh, we're getting into weeds.
Yeah, we are. But
the reason I say it's positive, keeping up with the Joneses, or it has a positive aspect, is because like this whole thing of being competitive, this wealth creation game, where it's like, well, I have a bigger house, you have a smaller house, that's a competitive thing, right? But you can look at it as negative. But if you really look at it, like, if you own a business and you're really competitive, you're going to end up serving more people. And this is the other thing is you think, well, okay, that's bad. You shouldn't. But the thing is like, okay, well, what happens in a society where that's not the case? You go, oh, I need a plumber. There's no plumber to be found. Oh, I need someone to do my roof. There's no roofer to be found. Why? Because nobody's out there playing those games. Yeah. This is the thing. It's okay if you don't want to play those games. If you want to just stay at home and play video games and work a low level job, or even just like couch surf and play video games, that's fine. And actually, we have a society where you can do that, and it's okay. But that's freedom of choice, right? Versus if you live in a communistic society, you're like told, hey, you got to do this job, right? The beauty of capitalism is you can actually choose to participate in the wealth creation game. You can choose to participate in the keeping up with the Joneses game, or you cannot. But for the people that want to play that game, it actually ends up benefiting everybody.
Yeah.
Because then the person that doesn't want to play those games, but they need a plumber, there's always a plumber around. Because there's tons of people competing to be the best plumber.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what creates options in society. That's what creates options. There's how many restaurants are out there in America? So many restaurants. Those are all people competing for your money to buy food. And it's nice because there's not just Taco Bell. There's Taco Bell. There's, Subway. There's Chipotle. There's a million different things to choose from. And I think when you get to the point where people aren't playing those wealth creation games, you get a progressively narrowing of options. Not just for the producer of those goods and services, but for the consumer. There's not as many options. Anyways.
Yeah.
So like, okay, but so let's talk about like let's define some terms. So like fascism, right? We talked about fascism a little bit. I kind of gave the definition of that. Like what I think there is I think it doesn't have to be all capitalistic. You can have some socialist programs. I don't think there's wrong with socialist programs. The problem is where the government's liabilities in terms of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all these things, all these welfare programs, when it outweighs the amount of money or income that's coming into the system, the whole system collapses. Because it's just like a checkbook, money going out, money coming in, right? And right now, I think we have far too much money going out and not enough money coming in. And how money comes in is through wealth creation, and it's actually, to me, through lowering taxes. It's to me through incentivizing people that already want to play those games to play more of those games. You know, to put in more work. I mean, GDP, gross domestic product, is the sum of all goods and services produced in a country, right? Well, if you have more people competing at producing goods and services to quote unquote keep up with the Joneses, or just because they like to play that game, then that means that there's going to be more and more people working towards producing goods and services, and there's going to be more goods and services out there for the consumer to choose from, which increases GDP, which makes the country more competitive against other countries. And so I think countries should be competitive on a GDP level. They could be competitive on the corporate level, the business level, and they should be competitive on the individualistic level. And the other thing is, like, when you're a person, say you're an engineer or something, and you're trying to be competitive, like say you and me are engineers, right? Let's say you and I were engineers, right? And you were just like content, and I was just content, and we were just like, well, we wouldn't study any new ways of building something. We wouldn't put any more work into our job than the bare minimum. But if I wanted to outcompete you, I may put in just a little bit more work, and then you may look at me like, damn, I just saw what he built. I got to build something bigger. And we'd go back and forth, and pretty soon we could end up being the best engineers in the whole country. And anybody that wanted something built would come to us. If we were civil engineers, they'd be like, oh, we want a bridge built? We got to call Jacob and Patrick. And we're going to pay them the most. And they're going to build the best bridge because we're so competitive. And that's beautiful, I think. I think that's beautiful. It's serving. It's good. It's a good thing. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
But.
Yep. Well, I did want to talk about some things, but might have to do that another week.
What did you want to talk about?
Well, there are some things I want to dive down, but dive into. There's just some similarities that I was seeing, like the correlation between what happened with the Cultural Revolution in China and what's happening currently now.
Okay.
And there's one example that I come to where it really hit home, where it was like, okay, this is a fictional story. It's the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind.
Yes, awesome series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this part where there's this empire. It's a parasitic empire, and it basically, what it does to survive, like its main country to survive, it's continuously at war, going around different parts of their world and taking resources to funnel back into their empire.
Sure. But
in their society, it's a communistic society, and the main character in the book gets captured and taken back to their homeland, and he's an ambitious person, and he's always improving everything around him. Competitive, but also just like
wanting to help people.
Wanting to help people and wanting to like everything to grow, and like he started influencing people around him. Like he was like, he started fixing things, like in his apartment there was something that was broken, and like
I remember this. Yeah. And they're like, you got to go to the board to basically put forth the idea of fixing this, and then the board has to decide.
And then they'll allocate someone to fix it. Instead, he just fixes it himself. It's like, why are you doing this? You're not getting no one's paying you for this or something like that,
Right.
or whatever. He's like, I'm doing it because I live here and I want to live in a nice place.
Right.
Um, and basically a lot of their structures and everything were ugly.
Dilapidated.
Like they had like a lot of just ugly demonic figures and everything. And then he ends up building like this beautiful sculpture of a woman.
Marble, yeah.
Marble statue, and it was the most beautiful thing in the city, and it just like it changed because it just got to like everything around people were so ugly. It was so ugly, and to see something beautiful,
right,
like really change. And that's one thing is like when things start getting ugly, what is going on? Like
right.
if you like
the architecture,
yeah,
when that's the thing too, is that if you look around, if you go back in time, like back to say the 1800s, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot. Now this can be subjective because beauty is subjective, but there's been a lot of people that I know, and for myself included, where if you look at pictures from the 1800s or even going back to before that, like you have these really intricate, beautiful churches and buildings that are built with just not a box.
Yeah.
And I'm not an expert on architecture by no means.
There's beauty in it.
But there's a lot more beauty in it, and that could be a symptom of a declining society. And kind of like dovetailing in to what you were saying is like the main character in those books, Richard, right?
Mm-hmm.
He basically took it upon himself to fix something.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't waiting on the collective to decide.
He was waiting on someone else.
He did it individualistically because he wanted to. And I think it's good for everybody to remember that a lot of times, and I say remember, but like I just think it's good. It's a good thing to for me. This is my opinion that a lot of beauty. I mean, all beauty, if you really look at it, most of it comes from the individual. It's from the. I mean, if you look at all the greatest painters or all the greatest architects or all the it's all coming from individuals that are doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not normally a organization that puts something together that's spectacular and beautiful, or if it is, it's a bunch of individuals contributing
mm-hmm.
their knowledge, their know-how to create something beautiful. But if you really go back down, it's really comes down to the individual.
Yeah, it's individual, but they're like, when you have people with a common goal, they're united in a common goal. It's the most unstoppable force that I know of.
Right, but that whatever beauty that organization puts forth, it always is individual contributors that contribute to that beautiful entity, and it typically, and I think this is by and large true, normally organizations that are forcing their group members to do a particular thing, it doesn't come out like
when you force
free will.
Yeah.
It doesn't come out when there's free association of people that work together in a free way.
Mm-hmm.
And people that are working together because they want to work together, and they're working towards a common goal because they want to work together to a common goal because they just freely want to do that. That's totally different from a group of people being forced to do something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Free will is important. Drawing blank.
That's okay. Yeah.
But the signs of cultures. If you look in history, there's Gothic architecture that's like, or a lot of the structures and stuff like the modern, like there's love put into some of these,
mm-hmm.
like into these structures. And if you look at I don't see a lot of awesome art or anything coming out right now, or awesome, like there's some interesting scientific projects that are really cool, which I love, but if you look at the cities, our cities are not clean. Um, for the majority of the cities in the United States are not clean. Um, there's just symptoms.
Yeah.
There's a lot of symptoms that you see that there's things are not functioning the way that they were like.
If you go back 100 years.
No, a couple decades.
Yeah. Even a couple decades. Yeah.
Just a couple decades. But you just look. You start to see like some symptoms.
Well,
like a lot of, massive symptoms.
That's another point that I want to make is like in a socialistic or communistic society where, like, especially in a communistic society where means of production is owned by the government, and if you really look at that and you look at the disparity between that and a capitalistic society, and you look at a capitalistic society with strong property rights, right? Mm-hmm. There's a big difference, and I felt this personally. I think this is universal for the most part. I could be wrong, but I feel like this is universal for the most part. It's definitely true in my life. If I own something, I care a lot more about it than if it's just owned by the city.
Yeah.
So, and what does this mean? So, like, if you own your house, you're gonna really care about how it is, how beautiful it is. You're gonna care. Mm-hmm. It's not just like, okay, I just want a hovel. I just want like a little hole in the ground to go live in. I want to be able to bring people over, to have my friends over, and have it be a really comfortable, beautiful place, And if I own it, if I truly own it, and it's truly mine, it's an extension of myself.
Yeah.
And so it's just like if you wanted to not bathe and shower and wear filthy clothes and not wear nice clothes. You want to wear nice clothes. You want to shower. Just like that, you also want to have your house clean. You want to have your windows clean. You want to have maybe like a fire pit, place for people to hang out, right? And the more I think that you can get away from public ownership and give it to the private sector, the more you're going to have the people that buy in and take care of what they have because they own it.
Having community, basically, like that's a aspect. I think that one of the main reasons is because of like the way the culture. I think that's one of the negatives of the way things have been functioning in the United States is the community. There's a lot of lonely people right now, but that's not necessarily the communistic or whatever. That's just the way that society. That's a cultural thing, I think.
Well, yeah, I think it's also the type of thing where if you feel
it's cultural and social media and stuff.
If you don't feel like if you're renting a house. Mm-hmm. And you're at a job and you don't own any part of the equity in your business, mm-hmm. and you're going to a business to sell your labor, but you don't really own anything in the business, it's hard to take pride in what you produce at your work.
Yeah.
Because it's not really an extension of yourself. You're just selling your labor. It feels very menial and it feels very like outside of you. It doesn't feel like an extension of you. And I think that's a problem. I think that we need, if you go back 100 years, I think it was 100 years, maybe a little bit more, they said that 80% of Americans own their own business. 80%. And now I think it's less than 14% own their own business. And the problem with that is that we have less and less people that own less and less parts of the production.
Mm-hmm.
And
ownership being part of it, like if you're in a large corporation, the incentives are okay. You should just be happy having a job. There's not like a lot of inclusion. The owner, you basically you want to be you want to be a part of something more.
Yeah, you want to be an owner or part owner.
Yeah,
and that is actually a part of like. If you want to call it socialism, that I will buy into, which is that if you say, okay, let's come up with a cooperative where 5 people own a business, that's cool. Mm-hmm. If you open a pizzeria or something, you can sit there and be like, I work at the pizzeria, but I also own a part of the pizzeria. So I care about my customers. I care about how I treat my customers. I care about the product that we produce. If there's a pizza that is not, we sent it to the customer and it was not good. It was not up to snuff. It wasn't up to standard. We're gonna be like, we're gonna fix this, and we're not gonna allow that to happen again. And so, like, goods and services get increasingly better over time. I think when you allow more and more people to own more and more, and not more and more as in like billionaires. I think owning more and more as in there's more people that own a share. They own a share, so it's like, and it allows for a lot more upward mobility. Because if you don't own anything and you just we know this. I mean, this is pretty common. If you go and you work at Amazon, that's cool. That's nothing wrong with that. But if you do that for the rest of your life, you sold your labor for 30 years of your career, and at the end of it, you don't own anything. So when you go to retire, you have whatever you have saved up, or whatever have saved up. But then that's all there is. But if you owned a piece of Amazon, you would actually be able to live off of it's going to continue to produce, and you're going to be able to continue to take a percentage of that. And that's why they tell you to invest in the stock market. That's why they tell you to invest in stocks. But I don't think that's enough. And the reason why I don't think it's enough, because I don't think that people are as simple as just having enough income. I think it's necessary to feel it's a necessary aspect of happiness to feel like you're adding value to other people. And if you worked at Amazon, but yet you also own a part of Amazon, and you worked at Amazon, and you also had some say in Amazon and what they produce, or how they do run their business, then you retired, but you were still sort of you owned a part of it after you retired, it would feel a lot better than just buying the S&P 500 and just, you know what I'm saying? I think that's a big element of happiness. I think a big element of happiness is progressing in life, but it's also like feeling like you're giving value to other people. And then when you retire, I think you want to feel like you're still part of the community and that your impact mattered.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying there with companies, but I mean, there's different people are free to develop a company the way that they want to. Basically, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's...
I'm not saying that
it's
you
a
can't
cool
do
way,
it the other way, but...
It is cool when you got profit sharing and all that stuff with the companies, but sometimes it's just not that... It's not going to work like that. Community is... Like, there's a lack of community if we're going to the cultural side. Like, our culture, there's a lot of lonely people that were very disconnected.
Yeah.
That's one thing that religion did bring, like when people were more religious, I believe the rate of Christians and like religious groups are like they're
going down,
way
we're
way
becoming
down.
more an atheistic society.
Yeah, and like here's the thing, that like yeah, the nice thing about that is you went to church every week and that was kind of your community,
right?
And when like if you go back and study villages and stuff, like it takes a village to raise a child. Like that's why you have so many people with like they don't know where to go because there's really not a lot of guidance. And like our parents or like the boomers, they had it's the individualistic side of capitalism. I see that part of the negative where it is just me. Like I worked and did everything myself. No, we're still a group of people, and like everything was created in this society by other people, and there's appreciation.
Yeah, see, I think that's a twisting of capitalism. I think.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, I think that's more about. I think that's a twisting of capitalism because if you go back a couple hundred years, right, where I said 80% of people own their own business, like. It's like, okay, a lot of people grew up on farms. A lot of those
talking about the ideology where it can promote of like, so the thing is when there's two sides to where it's like you don't want to be like, oh, it's all, that's what communism is kind of like, is like you're forced to redistribute wealth, you're supposed to do all this stuff. No, don't do that. It's capitalistic. But what I'm saying, that's not capitalism. What I'm saying is, it's not it is not about the individual, but it's also about the individual. You retain your freedoms to be able to do things that you want, but like.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things here.
I'm failing to bring my point across.
No, I think I understand. I think I understand your point. I do. I think I understand your point. I think there's actually two points here. So there's one which is like you want to have community, and outside of anything economic, any economic system, because I see socialism, communism, capitalism as mainly an economic system, right? So if you go outside of that and you leave that behind, people are happier in groups. That's just true. To me, that's evident. So like having friends, having a wife or a partner or a girlfriend, having parents, being close to your parents, your family that you grew up with, all those things are good. And then if you go to the economic side, now that's where you can start looking at different ideologies. But I think what you're saying is that the negative side of maybe the capitalistic economic system is that it can tend to atomize people to where it's just like, no, you got to do everything yourself. You got to win yourself. And the thing is like, I think that you can actually sit there and I think that aspect of capitalism is actually like it's a manipulation of what is actually a good form of capitalism, because I think a good form of capitalism is that you have there's not these Amazons, Microsofts, Googles. You have like a lot of competition, and then outside of a lot of competition, you have a lot of ownership. And the thing is like, okay, Amazon, right? It's this huge monolith of a company. It's massive. And we have tons of massive companies. And the problem with massive companies is that they've gobbled up most of the market share. And when you gobble up most of the market...
They're not allowed to fail.
They're really not. They're not allowed. And
bailed out, which is horrible.
Yeah, the government will
let them fail.
The government will bail them out. They actually need to be allowed to fail. And so that it's just like in a forest. If you have a bunch of trees and they grow up, and eventually, without a forest fire, all the baby trees can't grow. So every once in a while, naturally, just through nature, this is what naturally happens. Forest fire comes through and it actually kills off all the dead wood. It burns all the dead wood. So that's like companies that are actually not running properly. They should be allowed to die. Yeah. And then what you have is then you can have an Amazon will die, and on the grave of Amazon, 1,000 different little Amazons will sprout up. And the beauty of that is each one of those 1,000 Amazons, little baby Amazons, each one can be an owner. And so you can give more ownership to people. And that's what I was saying, like a couple hundred years ago. In America, 80% ownership, or 80% of business, there were 80% of people owned businesses. And what that allowed was, economically, that allowed ownership, but it also allowed community. Because you would grow up in a family where, like, your dad owned a farm. And then you, with your brothers or your sisters, would work the farm. And then eventually your dad would die, and you would get that farm. And then maybe one of you could split off and buy another farm or whatever. But the point is, you want as many people as possible to own businesses. And then that also adds to community. You know, whereas versus Tyson, right? Or one of these big farms. And so they get to own 1 million farms, 1 million little farms in one. and no one really gets to own that except for like a couple people.
Yeah, it's monopolies.
It's monopolies. It's horrible.
But well, you ready to about wrap this up?
Yeah, I guess so. I just think that all those concepts are really important.
Yeah.
And I think if we can get back to more stronger property rights, more people owning, less monopolies, because I think we're in like crony capitalism, to where it's like these big companies have built monoliths and then they built big moats around it to where through regulations that won't allow other people to come up and build businesses, and then they run into financial troubles, and then the government bails them out, which actually strengthens these ties between government and business, and I think that is what leads to fascism.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think socialism is like basically forced redistribution of wealth, and I'm fine with the redistribution of wealth as long as it's not forced. So
yeah, if something fails, then let it fail.
Let it fail, and if you want,
that's a natural redistribution. That allows opportunity for other people.
That's nature's natural redistribution of wealth. And also like if you want to give your money to somebody else, that's a redistribution of wealth. But it comes from you.
Yeah, you're not forced. Yeah,
you're not forced, and because if you're forced, I think it disincentivizes you to actually produce anything else that's beautiful, to produce any more value, because you're not going to get any more.
Yeah.
You can't gain any more security or more wealth or more beauty in your personal life, and so why work harder?
Yeah, and here's another thing. Another thing about rich. Why you like? So, developing aircraft, for instance. The rich were the people that were the ones taking the risk to go out and create, make airplanes and stuff like that.
Right.
And because it wasn't very financially viable yet.
Nope.
They saw the potential.
Yep.
And then that's what's going on right now. We've got a freaking awesome space race. That's exciting as heck. Why would you want to steal that money from the billionaires and like?
Yeah. Let them go out and experiment.
Yeah. I think it's great that Jeff Bezos has Blue Origin,
yep.
And Elon Musk, and then what's his name?
I didn't know there was another.
The Virgin Islands dude.
No, it's not Russell Brand. It's his name is similar. Virgin
Airlines.
Virgin Airlines.
Yeah, but he's got they have the space plane or something like that.
Does he? He's cool.
Yeah,
I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, but the thing is all these people are playing this game, and it ends up being good for everybody because then we can actually go out and we can get a job. Because believe it or not, it's actually pretty hard to come up with a system. And believe it or not, it's actually really hard to run a business. And believe it or not, it's actually really hard to get people to cooperate all for one common good.
Yeah.
Without forcing them, it's hard.
Yeah, well,
and when you force them, it doesn't really work that well.
Very well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the military's kind of, but you're volunteering, knowing what you're getting into.
Signed up for it.
You're signing up to be.
And how many people come out of the military and they think, "Wow, that was cool." Some people, but not very many. Most people come out the.
There's actually a lot of people that like that.
But I don't think it's because they're forced to do the things they were doing. I think it was because they had community.
They had community, but they were placed in challenges and they overcame them. They were put in situations that they wouldn't put themselves in, and they were able to overcome them. And discipline is one thing that you get. And also, here's the thing: there's people that do well in and who do well out, and there's people that don't do well out.
Yeah.
And it's also the mission, like having a good mission.
It is
not a good mission. Having a mission after you get out there.
But everything to me stems from wanting to create more value and beauty and wealth in your own life and your family's life. And if you don't have that incentive, what is there?
Yeah.
There's nothing. If no matter how hard you work, no matter how smart you are, no matter how creative or like clever you are, if you're always going to be given the same amount as the next person, there's no point.
Yep.
There's no point. And anyway, so yeah, I think we're kind of it's a big topic, and I think it's a really hard topic to surround. But I think generally I think we said some good things today, and I think that people should research this and try to figure out what your own personal beliefs are on this, and
what's that book that you recommended to me again?
1984 George Orwell.
1984. Yeah. I'm gonna listen to that book probably this week.
Yeah.
And maybe
you guys should too.
If you guys want to listen to it as well.
It's on YouTube.
Basically, if you play this game, you look for similarities of what are going on in the United States, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about certain things, and then you look up communism, fascism, and stuff like that, and then like it's not very clear. You're not going to be able to be like, oh, I see this happening here. Yeah. But if you take real life situations, they're actually labeled communism and fascism, but if you look at the definition, like on the internet, it's not gonna compute. But once you research actual history, the actual situations of what communism is, like science fiction or whatever, representing what happens, then you can see the same thing that like is happening in the United States. Yeah. And that is the main reason why I want to talk about it. It's just like be aware of it. Yeah. And it's like, it's just very easy. It's very easy. It happens it's happened many times through history where, oh, nothing's a problem. You're sleeping. You're not aware of it. And then all of a sudden, what in the world just happened? Yeah. We're in a completely different world. I mean, we are in a completely different world than we were even 5 years ago. Yep. Like, it's insane. Yep. So just be aware of that and like question things. It's like just question things and like be wary of this is right, this is wrong. There's always like there's always different. Well, it's not, nothing's black and white, but like there are situations where if you're able to identify the patterns from history, because it's all happened, you can really see it happening,
and you can hopefully not make the same mistakes in the future. Yeah, and I think too for people like this, like I said before, this is a really big topic. I mean, it's been debated forever. Mm-hmm. You know, socialism versus communism versus fascism versus capitalism. This has been debated for a long time by people that are far more educated and intelligent than we are. But the thing is like we're having this conversation today, and it's kind of funny because like you can sit there and say, oh, but you guys aren't really qualified or educated enough to talk about this. But I think everybody should talk about this kind of stuff, and I think that everybody should take a stab at it at least. Mm-hmm. I don't fully understand it. I don't know if there is anybody that fully understands it all, and I think everybody should take a stab at it and to try to understand it as best as they can, because ultimately, it's like everybody is in this system. Yeah. We're in this thing called America. We're in technically like Elon Musk says, a corporation that has a monopoly on violence. We're in this corporation. We're a part. We're a member of this corporation. So like, I think everybody should take a stab at understanding this, because I think the more people that take a stab on this, the closer we can get to actually discovering what is the core principles, the good principles, the bad principles, and we can move to a better future in the future. And we do that by talking to our representatives, talking to our congressmen, voting, all this stuff. And you can't do that without being educated, and no one's going to do it for you. And it's like, whether, I forget who said this, but democracy only works with an educated populace. Yeah. So and you look at the systems right now, like I mean, there's new education systems getting like sprouting up now, which is good. It is, because and they're outperforming our system is not good. Our education, Probably because it's been subsidized by the government, and they don't really have any incentive to be competitive.
I mean, it's been infiltrated
by other countries,
by foreign entities.
Yep, that's true too.
The Soviet Union literally had plans, and it's their plans actually. If you look at what their plans were for the United States, it's actually working better than they initially tried to do, which is disturbing. Like,
that is disturbing.
I'm not saying this just to be like whatever. I mean,
hyperbolic.
Yeah, it's a legit thing.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't really want to talk about this stuff, but it's like
it's good.
I think it's really important because I'm like, if everyone if I'm complacent, it's likely everyone is complacent.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, someone else will do it, and I'm not smart enough to figure all this out,
right.
Or I'm not eligible to have a voice in anything.
Right.
That is the whole thing. That's one of the ways that the ideologies win is when
you're too dumb. You can't figure it out.
You can't figure it out. You
just participate. Yeah. Just do what you're told. You can't figure it out. You can't do your own thing. You're not smart enough to figure this out. You gotta sit there and look to the elitists and the government and the officials to tell you what's right and wrong. No, you got to do that for yourself. The only person that can make a decision for you is you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're not that smart or you're not that educated, well, hey, it still doesn't matter. You still got to take a stab at it, and you got to do it to the best of your abilities.
Yeah. The thing is continual learning.
Yep.
I'm not super knowledgeable on it's hard for me to explain exactly or remember certain details or whatever because I've listened to a lot of information, but you continually keep on educating yourself when you can, and broaden the base of your knowledge. And the more you know, the more you realize you don't know,
right?
And that's the thing.
But the closer to truth you are,
closer to truth, you're actually able to identify some truths. The more into the weeds you go, the less solid truths there are. And more it's just there's so many things.
But the more truths you have to stand on too.
Yeah, the more, because if you don't know if you're not if you don't learn history or whatever, you're definitely gonna repeat itself.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to do. You're oh, I'm not gonna do that. Well, there's so many situations where you think you know and you really don't know. I think I've been wrong so many. The way that I used to think was not correct, and I used to think I knew a decent amount.
Yeah,
it's I didn't.
Yeah, and we still don't. But I think as time goes on, you get a little bit less wrong, and I think that's all we can hope to be is a little bit less wrong.
What works? What works? And the thing is we know communism doesn't work. It's been tested so many times. The United States is not the rule; it's the exception.
Yeah, and the argument against that is, well, we didn't try this version.
We didn't try this version.
We got to try this new version of, and that's really why Marxism and socialism and communism is so hard. Is because, like I said in the beginning, there's so many shades that they say, oh, well, we got to try this new version of it. This one will work, but I think ultimately anything with force doesn't really work.
Yeah,
it doesn't really work. But anyway.
Yep.
Well, yeah. I think we're gonna wrap this up, but I think next week we're gonna talk a little bit about AI and kind of give a little bit of our thoughts on that, and I think we're gonna try to move towards maybe doing a little bit of trading on AI and kind of
trading on AI.
Yeah, we're dip our toes into that.
Well, yeah, interested in doing that. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that more because to actually get everything with AI, usually trading with AI, that's a whole nother thing.
Oh yeah,
costs. I mean, so I don't know.
But the more we know, the more we know.
Yeah, the more you know. I'm interested in yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure that out.
But that's gonna be next week podcast. So.
But anyways, peace all.
All right, peace guys. Take care.